And we're live. Welcome to yet another PCS Impact Q&A. I'm your host, MJ Boyce. I'm the Director of Community Outreach at PCS Grades. With me, as always, is the lovely Megan Harless, our resident PCS reform advocate, and oh, by the way, resident BA censored for little ears in your room because we love you. So before we get to Megan's DoD updates and our lovely guest, Miss Patty Barron, we're going to go ahead and start off with those housekeeping items as we do every week. On your marks, get set, go. Okay, just to start, first thing, I always say it every week, we bring these experts to you. We bring these experts to you from Transcom, from AUSA, from the moving industry, spouses who've turned movers. We've got it all to keep you informed. But there will sometimes be specific instances where they might not have what you're looking for in terms of answers. Because you know what? Not sure if you're aware of this. I say it every week. We've got the answers. If you've got questions, we've got answers. Go ahead and leave those questions, comments, concerns down there in the comments section, and we'll get back to you with an answer. If we don't know the answer, we know who does. And if we don't know either of those things, we'll take your questions and we'll get you some action on the back end. All right. There are 2 forever and always resources for your specific military family situation. Number 1, your local chain of command. Number 2, your local transportation office. Those are the people who know you. Those are the people who are dealing with your stuff. Those are the people who can help take your specific situation and move it further for action. But like I said, we bring experts like Miss Patty to you to give you those answers because they are the source. And what better way to get an answer to your question than go straight to the source, right? Last but certainly not least, we need to do our part, people. We've got to flatten that curve. We have got to flatten that curve. It's crazy out there. We've got a possible, if we're not already in it, fall surge coming, and people are still PCSing. Wear your mask, social distance, whatever it takes to stay safe. We got to do our part because when we flatten that curve, we're going to flatten Murphy with it. You hear me, Murphy? We are coming for you. And with that, I'm going to throw it over to Megan for those official updates. Megan?
Hey, everybody. So just a couple of things this week for you. Everything I'm going to discuss today is kind of Army related because we're coming off the AUSA town hall meeting from last week, and we are lucky to talk with Patty today. So some of these things I'm going to discuss are things that were mentioned during the PCS forum last week, just so everybody's kind of aware what's happening, at least on the Army side, with our PCS moves. So the first thing is that QA inspections should be happening at 100%, either in person or by telephone or virtually of some means. So if you are moving either in or out of your location and you have not heard from your QA inspector, reach out to your local transportation office. They'll be happy to help you if you have any questions or issues, but just know somebody should be reaching out to you. The next one is claims advisors. So the Army is making this move to hire some claims advisors. So these folks are going to be working with the MCO and the claims department, and they are going to be reviewing any claims that are at 60 days or older to contact the service member, the family, to find out what is going on with that claim. Is it, sitting at 90 days because you are in the process of negotiating with your TSP and you're going back and forth, or is it just sitting there and nothing's happened? That way they can, know about what's going on with your claim, and they can help advise you, what directions and options you have to try to get your claim settled. The next thing is the Army PCS Move App. So this app is very informative. There's lots of good information on there, links that take you to where you need to go. Right now, this app, it is information-based, but we are working through the process to make it more interactive. So in the future, you'll be able to do a lot more with this app, to help make your PCS go smoother. The last thing I want to talk about, I'm really, really excited about. We've heard from a lot of families about issues with their weights, being overweight for one reason or another. While the JTR does allow you to file an exception to policy for being overweight, such as if you have medical equipment or a really large family of some sort, you can have some, your weight increase up to a certain amount. The Army has introduced, a policy to increase our weight allowances. So they took the time, they did a cost benefit analysis as to, where folks are sitting at now with their weight allowances, how many folks are overweight, what would it cost to move extra weight. So they are looking at increasing our weight allowances for what we are allotted right now. So it's not passed, it's not in place yet, but they've introduced it. They're working with the other services to get it approved, and it's going through that process. So once we know what the weight allowances are being increased, we'll bring that to y'all and let you know what it is. But that's something we're really excited about, and hope that in the near future, hopefully by next PCS peak season, that we'll all be allowed a little extra pounds. Because I know for us, we have our home gym. I know a lot of you folks have also invested into having your own home gym, due to COVID and the new Army physical fitness test that they have out. So having a little bit of extra weight that we're allowed is going to be a huge help for a lot of families. So that's all I've got for now. Send it back to you, MJ.
Awesome. Thank you for those updates. Love it, Megan. See, just for the record, audience, this is why we love Megan, because I bring the shenanigans and she brings the policy and breaks it down Barney style for people like moi. Now, on to business. Here we go. Today's topic, like Miss Megan said, we are talking with Miss Patty, who is the Director of Family Readiness over at AUSA, because we love our acronyms, otherwise known as the Association of the United States Army. HUA, right? Okay, see, I got it. See, I'm usually Marine speak, but I can hang. We bleed purple here, right? So we're going to talk a lot about kind of like AUSA and family readiness in general, but also just for the audience's purview, Ms. Patty is also a member of the DoD's Military Family Readiness Council, which is really awesome because she takes her knowledge and her family readiness guru mojo and brings it and represents that Army perspective from the family. So before we get into those questions, I'm going to hand it over to Ms. Patty to tell us a little bit about herself.
Thanks so much, MJ. I love your enthusiasm and your energy, so I'm going to try to keep up because, I have to keep up with the Marines, absolutely. And Megan, what a great overview. Thank you so much. That's super good information. So my name is Patty Barron. I'm the Director of Family Readiness at the Association of the United States Army. And who is AUSA and what is it that we do? Believe it or not, a lot of Army family members and Army soldiers don't know. AUSA is the Army's professional association. Think of us as the American Medical Association or the Academy of Pediatrics. We are your professional association. And by that, I mean that we try to do three things. We try to educate, we try to inform, and we try to connect. At AUSA Family Readiness, we have an awful lot of different ways to do that. The education part just happens throughout the year, but especially this last week where we were part of the larger AUSA Now, which was our very first virtual conference. Usually we hold our annual meeting in Washington, D.C. at the Walter E. Washington Convention Center. Usually we get about 32,000 people that attend that meeting in person. We take up the entire convention center with our exhibits, with our forums, with our keynote speakers, you name it. But this year, obviously, because of COVID, we had to go to a virtual setting and everybody held their breath because, we'd never done it before. We had over 20,000 people register for AUSA Now. So, no pressure. And we were really trying hard to make sure that people enjoyed the experience. And I think, lessons learned, first time out, but for the most part, I think people did enjoy it. Now, what do I do to help educate our Army families? But let me say to you, it's not just our Army families, it really is our military families, because so much about what we talk about pertains to everybody. The Army is the biggest service. And so I have a feeling that whatever we say to Army families will ring true to many others. There are very specific things that the Army does for their families that maybe the other services don't do. We like to think we do it best, but I imagine that if you're a Marine Corps spouse, a Navy spouse, an Air Force spouse, you like to think your service does it best too. And we all know that the Coast Guard rocks. So let me just say that. But what I do with the education part is host family forums, and I try very, very hard to keep my ear to the ground throughout the year so that the topics that we select are ones that you want to hear about. And so this past year, we really wanted to focus on the quality of life initiatives that the Chief of Staff of the Army, General James McConville, had set out last year. And they are five. There's five of them. There's childcare, there's healthcare, there's PCS moves, there's household goods, and there's spouse employment. We couldn't do them all at once, and so we chose what we thought were the top two, and they were spouse employment and military moves. And I'll talk a little bit about military moves in a minute, but it went over really, really well. So that's the education part. The informed part is our ability to be able to connect with Army senior leaders, with military senior leaders, and with the Congress. And we try to keep them informed about your needs, and we try to keep you informed about what they're thinking. We are the only association that has a family readiness directorate. Therefore, we have a very special place, hopefully in their hearts, when we come knocking on their door, because they know that whatever they tell us will get directly to our families. And that's super important to me. By doing that, I'm also invited to sit on different panels and different committees and different boards, one of them being, of course, the Military Family Advisory Council, which I'm so proud and honored to be a part of. And we'll talk about that later, I'm sure. And then the last part is the connect part. We do travel throughout the country during a regular normal year, where we go to installations, we talk to spouses, we talk to soldiers, we talk to leadership. We try to make sure that we know what's going on. And I'm an old Army spouse. My husband served for 30 years. He's been retired. I'm not going to tell you for how long, but it's just at 10 or under, so you can guess. And so it's hard sometimes to stay current. But I'm very, very lucky because I have friends like Megan and MJ and the Military Spouse of the Year program, and my daughter, who also happens to be named Megan, and her friends. And they are the ones that keep me current because they are currently living the life. So the connection part is really, really important to us, and making sure that we stay relevant and that we do what we can do for our families. And the last thing I'm going to do is put in a plug for membership. We are at over 260,000 members, perhaps, at AUSA, which is an awful lot of people. But when you think about the number of people that are in the Army, we could use more. And certainly for families that would like to join AUSA, there is a special family membership that I think we'll be able to put up later on in the talk. But basically, that's what I do.
Wow. Okay. So thanks, everybody. That was great. No, she took the words out of my mouth. Oh my gosh. See, this is why she is where she is. Miss Patty's the bomb. Write it down. Make it a hashtag. It's happening. Okay. By the way, the term old spouse, I kind of get what you like. I hate that, and seasoned spouse. Okay, we're not French fries, right? I prefer Cabernet spouse. How about that? So like you start out, you're like the Boone's Farm spouse when you first start out, and then you end up the Cabernet spouse.
I'm all about the Cabernet, all about it.
All about it, yes. And, as far as, I really love how you kind of touched on the fact that, no, your husband isn't currently serving anymore, but he can retire all he wants. You know what I mean? You're not going anywhere. We had a meeting. That's the way it's happening. So you did tell us a little bit about AUSA, and that was kind of going to be my first question, about the organization and its mission and what it does, what you did. So I'm going to refine that a little bit, and I'm going to pretend like I'm a brand spanking new Army spouse. So if me as a brand new Army spouse, how is AUSA, why should I infuse AUSA like into my life? How does the mission help me? How does the organization help me? What can I do with that?
That's a great question, MJ. And I would say young Army MJ spouse, there's so much information out there, right? It's information overload. Mm-hmm. You can go anywhere and you can find information. The trick is to find information that's vetted, accurate, without drama. That's what you're trying to find. And that's what AUSA will provide you. The most current information that the Army has. My job is to make sure that you have the most current information the Army has about Army families. And to, again, get the word back to those folks that make those decisions to make sure they're making the right decisions, to improve our lives. Because really, if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. And that rings true for AUSA and Army families for sure. So I think what I would say to you is, if you want good, accurate information, if you want your voice to be heard, if you want to make a difference in the lives of those that come behind you, then you want to be a part of AUSA.
So you're muted, MJ. You're muted.
Just kidding. Hi, Murphy. Go away. So, just really quick, I just want to let our audience know that we are doing a giveaway. So, any questions, comments, concerns that you have for Miss Patty or either of us, go ahead and leave those in the comment section, and we'll get back to you with an answer. We'll throw your name up on the screen, just like so. Kristen, Christy, hey, MJ, Megan, and Patty. It's good to see you. All right, we got a lot of those, by the way, a lot of shout outs. So, but any questions, comments, concerns, throw them down in there and you'll be entered to win an awesome Hope Design necklace. And, but LOL smiley faces, try to use a little bit more verbiage because those by itself don't count. But anyways, Megan, take it away.
Yeah, so we've mentioned it a few times that every year AUSA has an annual meeting. I had the opportunity to be able to attend in person in 2018. I didn't get to attend last year because we were PCSing, and then this year, going virtual with COVID. So what exactly is this annual meeting that AUSA puts on? What does it provide for soldiers and their families that they should take away from it?
Great question, Megan. The AUSA annual meeting is one of the 2 or 3 platforms that the United States Army uses to get their message out to service members, to policymakers, to basically the nation. And we're very, very proud of that. A part of what happens at AUSA is a teaming and a wonderful collaboration between the Army and AUSA. So you'll see senior leaders all over the place. I mean, there are so many stars, as you know, Megan, walking around the conference center. There's tons of people, but more than that, it's our regular Army people those are the folks that we're trying to reach because of the messaging that we're trying to provide. What's current with personnel, what's current with policy as far as the size of the Army. Where is the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army and the Sergeant Major of the Army leading us? What do they think are important issues? So that's kind of a big picture. But then we break it down to some more specifics. And at AUSA, the family forums, they're very well attended. And we boast the only senior leaders town hall, I think, anywhere where we have all 3 of the Army senior leaders present. And you made a difference a couple of years ago, Megan, when you attended by asking the housing questions that you asked. That's what I love about it, because they hear directly from our families, and our families say, no, this is the way things are happening right now. You need to listen. They do it respectfully, but they don't just sugarcoat it. And I think that our Army leaders have really counted on that transparency and that interaction. And that's why it's so good. So it's basically the Army's ability to tell their story, but your ability to interact with the Army.
I love that. I really love that whole ability to, because how often do we really get that FaceTime? How often are we actually able to sit there and talk to the decision makers, right? It's rare. That's a fantastic opportunity, which actually brings me to my next question. So you guys had to pivot, just like everybody else. AUSA had to pivot to a virtual format because of COVID. So kind of what was that experience of moving this big event onto the virtual side? And actually, to piggyback off of that, what was that experience moving to the virtual side? But Yvonne brings up a good point. And she says, we hope that AUSA annual meeting will be in person next year, but do you think that they'll also keep the virtual component for those that can't make it?
That's great, MJ, and thank you for the question, Yvonne, who I love. So the answer is yes to both, because we learned so much. Again, we had to pivot to a virtual event, and we only had 77 days to do that. That's like crazy. Our meetings department, I don't think they slept for 77 days, bless their hearts. The platform, everything was created from nothing. We even had to create a studio at AUSA headquarters where some of the events were filmed and recorded. So we had a combination of recorded and live streaming, which was great. The beauty of it was that a lot of people that don't usually get a chance to come to AUSA were able to connect with AUSA, and we don't want to lose that. That was phenomenal. However, it is old home week when you attend AUSA. You see so many people that you serve with and that you love, and and we don't want to take away from that, because it brings an awful lot of excitement and just a desire to do it again. So we want to keep that intact. the one thing I'll say from my perspective this year that I was sad about, and Yvonne, I know you'll be able to commiserate with me as well, is that the Marshall Award dinner is always the highlight of the 3-day conference, because it's kind of like we celebrate that it's over and we're providing this amazing award to somebody, and somebody that really, really deserves it. And this year it went to, for the second time in our history, it went to a group, and the group was the Army family. And I really wish we could have celebrated with our Army families. The thought was we were going to invite lots of people, that we know, that we could maybe fly in and have them be in the Marshall Awards, because it would have been such a celebration. We couldn't do that this year, but I'm hoping that people had a chance to view the video that was done to celebrate Army families.
Yeah, I just want to say it was a really great event that was put on. I was able to tune into some of it last week, and so it was just very nicely done with how it was. And speaking of the forums, just it's so good being able to hear our senior leaders actually listen to our questions that we have and provide answers right then for them. And even a couple of times where they have said, I don't have an answer, but I will follow up with you and get back to you. And then, a week later, getting that email of them following up with you and making sure you get the answer that you need. So it's really cool to have that experience and to know that our senior leaders really do care. So coming off of last week, this whirlwind of a time, could you tell us what some of the exciting highlights were that took place during the annual meeting?
Absolutely. I would say that from the family forum perspective, from the spouse employment and the military moves perspective, a lot of new information was provided. I was really happy about that, because sometimes, they tell you the same thing over again. This time there were actually some really new innovations that are rolling out currently or are going to be rolled out very, very soon. I would say that one of the things that I heard in the spouse employment part were from SECO, or the spouse education career opportunities that DoD runs. They have a cohort for my CAA soon to be graduates or graduates. And so they're placing them together, and they're going to have peer counseling and training done. I think that's going to be very, very helpful to someone that's just coming out of my CAA, and which is that scholarship account basically that helps younger spouses in the lower ranks go after their degrees or certifications. And now you've got it, what do you do with it? So there's some help there. I think the Department of Labor, we had one of our folks who is a fellow, a DoD fellow in the Department of Labor, Sergeant Major Chris Rick. He announced the fact that there is a TAP program just for military spouses. They had a pilot that they did virtually in 4 different sites, I think a few months ago. They did some lessons learned from that. They're actually going to have 4 sites starting already that are going to provide in-person classes. Now, because of COVID, I'm not quite sure how that's working, but if you live at Fort Hood, or if you live at Fort Stewart, Fort Hood and Fort Gordon, got it right, then you might want to check it out and see exactly what's happening there. But a TAP program that focuses on the questions that military spouses have, and it's not just an Army program, it's a purple program. So I think there's one at a Naval Air Station Jackson, and there's one at an Air Force base as well. So that's pretty cool. I think that we talked a lot about hiring our heroes, and we had Meredith Lozar talk about a survey that was currently done where they found out that, we always talk about mismatching talent with an actual job. But what they found through this survey is that a lot of our spouses are getting into marketing. A lot of our spouses are getting into graphic design, just different things like that. Well, there's a need for those types of talents out there. So there might be even more possibilities to find employment. And certainly we had 2 government officials on there that talked about hiring because the chief has made military spouse employment one of his quality of life initiatives. The Army, I think the DoD and the government are really trying hard to find military spouses and hire them into positions. And then the Army is taking that one step further by helping you transition with that same position to your next duty station, which is amazing. So that was really great with Family Forum 1. Family Forum 2, you touched on a lot of what they talked about, Megan, our military moves forums. I think a takeaway for me from that particular forum, again, we bring the leaders to you. So we had Lieutenant General Doug Gabram on. He is the Installation Management Commander, the 3-star in charge of MCOM. We also had Major General Michael Russell, who, as you know, is the Assistant Deputy Chief of Staff G4. They talked about what currently is happening, and it is difficult. The stop move order was horrendous. I know a lot of you guys who are stuck at Fort Leavenworth, Megan, it was like the great year of CGSC, and all of a sudden there you are stuck. But they used Fort Leavenworth, they used the War College, they used the Sergeant Major's Academy as pilots to see how they could move people during COVID. And again, lessons learned through that. And I think they did in my opinion, I did a great job. I'm sure there were glitches, but they did try really, really hard. I'm just going to read to you that the Army safely completed over 72,000 PCS moves in 2020. So up to today, 2020. My daughter's was one of them. Megan, yours was one of them too. And my Megan went from Schofield Barracks, Hawaii, all the way to Kaiserslautern, Germany. No easy feat. And one horrible thing happened, and that was with their dog, where they weren't allowed to bring their puppy on board when they thought they could, but that got fixed. And that was the airline's fault, not the Army's fault. But over, all in all, things worked, and they just got their household goods today. Shipped them out in July, got them today. I'll tell you the horror stories later, but for the most part, okay, just that they forgot to label the boxes, so they didn't know what rooms to put them in, but she'll be fine. Anyway, there was great information during the military moves forum. We also wanted to not just talk about moves as in the technical aspect of moving, but we had to think about the bigger holistic picture. And what about childcare? What about your children's education, especially during COVID and what's happened during COVID? So we had Dr. Becky Porter, who is the CEO and president of Military Child Education Coalition. She gave some great resources for how to help your child move from one, installation to another during COVID, especially when you're not quite sure what that school district is doing versus what you were doing in the other one. And then Helena Rodarmel, who is the chief of CYS for the Army, talked about childcare. Childcare is an issue. It is an issue in almost in every aspect of working, moving, appointments, just having a me moment where you can just put your kid away not away. I'm not talking about away.
No, you had it right the first time.
But you could put your child in a setting where they're going to be happy and safe, and you could take a little time to just breathe. And we all need to breathe right now. This has been an incredibly difficult 7 or 8 months. But yeah, those are some of the big takeaways. And of course, this Army Senior Leaders Town Hall was exceptionally done. Well, I felt very strongly that the answers that were given by the Sec Army, the chief, and the SMA were very, very much honest and from the heart. And I appreciate that, because it doesn't work well all the time, but it works well most of the time. So I would say that.
Yeah, and I really appreciate, that aspect of looking at the moving as a whole, all of the things that go with it, because it's not just moving our household goods from point A to point B, but it's the childcare aspect, the schooling aspect, the finding a new job aspect. It's, having to start everything all over. And as you said, with childcare, a lot of people, we call our neighbor to come watch our kids so we can take care of moving. We call in grandparents to come help, drive from point A to point B, so that way our child isn't sitting in the backseat alone or dropping them off with grandparents. And obviously for this year, families couldn't do that. And so it really was a big struggle trying to figure out that childcare piece. So I really appreciated that forum, kind of all encompassing everything together and dealing with moving from point A to point B.
Megan, thanks so much for saying that. And I will actually tell you both that the reason we do that is because we hear you. We hear you. It's not just one thing. It's everything. It's everything. And we want to be very cognizant of that and provide you with the information that'll be helpful.
And you know what, especially I kind of locked in a little bit when you started talking like TAP for spouses, because let me tell you, from many perspectives, I have a lot of knowledge on this. You know, I was a VA briefer. I was a subcontractor for the VA, and transitioning service members would see this mug at bowling, Anacostia Bowling. And so, you know, the one thing that I think kept coming up there was that there was never any space available for spouses. Like, spouses are welcome to come, but there was never any space available because we had a max capacity every single week. So what I found myself doing as an advisor was sitting down with all of these spouses after the fact and having individual meetings and going through everything that I went through. But my biggest thing was, yes, have one for the spouses and make sure it's not watered down, because the Marine Corps, shout out Marine Corps, I love you, I swear, did have something similar. I was part of the pilot in terms of facilitating, but it wasn't the meat and potatoes. It wasn't the details. We are used to dealing with all of the details so that our service member can concentrate on the mission. So when we get these TAPS classes, I'm not going to lie, an audience, correct me if I'm wrong, I want the same details that are being provided to my service member. And so I think that it's awesome that the Army is kicking it off like this, and that it's purple. I can't wait. I can't wait to learn more about that. Like, I can't, because transition is really no joke. It is a reintegration that is no other.
What MJ is really trying to say is go Army. The word just can't find it out of her mouth, but she's really trying to say go Army.
I'm going to get my Marine spouse card pulled if I can go ahead and say that.
Well, we'll say it for you. So go, okay. Army. But I do want to say too that at AUSA, one of the things that I'm currently working on with Holly Daly, as a matter of fact, we're working with Holly and of course Thea Green, who is my program manager, and I love her, on a transition project for military spouses. And what we're trying to do is not recreate the information or the wheel, because that's all out there. It's trying to bring it together so that you can find it when you need it, and have you look at it through two different lenses. Lens number one, my spouse is transitioning out of the Army. What do I need to know to support that transition? Which, you know, they come home and they don't tell you anything, and then the next thing you know, they've got 3 job interviews and they can't find their tie or whatever. And then the second perspective is, we are transitioning as a family out of the military. What do we need to know to make that transition successful? So are you thinking about starting a new career? Are you getting back into the workforce? What about your kids? Are they going off to college? Are you moving to Germany? Well, I have a friend of mine who they moved to Bahrain. I said that totally wrong. You know what I mean.
Bahrain?
Thank you. That's what I meant. And their kids were all in college here in the United States. That's a long distance. And they did it, you know, right after he retired from the military. So there'll be more information on that probably at the next annual meeting. So stay tuned for that.
That's awesome. Okay. So speaking of annual meetings, I want to dive a little bit more into, so, you know, like, you know, we've seen many spouses from all branches of service attend or sometimes take part in the AUSA annual meeting. Like, I've been there, done that, and almost walked away with a t-shirt. But for the new spouse, kind of like we were talking about before, whether they're new to Army life or just new to this event in general, you know, you've talked a little bit about what's kind of in it for them, but in terms of focus, can you tell us a little bit more about the family forums and the Family Readiness Pavilion?
Thank you, MJ, for mentioning the Pavilion. If it's very intimidating to come to an annual meeting by yourself. And so we, you know, I know you're both shaking your heads because it's a big conference center with a whole lot of people in there. And so one of the things that I focused on was trying to make it so that it was a little bit more family friendly. So we started having some networking events. We had a breakfast, we had a lunch and learn. We did a couple of things where you could meet other people that are there by themselves, and you might not feel all alone. So the family forums, again, are part of the education piece. You know, what's currently on the top of the minds of our military families, and how do we give them the information that they need? And I know I've covered that pretty well. The Military Family Readiness Pavilion, or the Family Readiness Pavilion, is part of the larger exhibit hall space, which is enormous. Just to give you a picture, they bring in helicopters into this space. I mean, a real live, take it apart, put it together kind of helicopter, tanks, Bradleys, you name it. And so it's a lot of fun because there's a lot of stuff, equipment, things that you take your picture in front of something like that. That's pretty cool. But the Family Pavilion is made up of mostly nonprofits and some government agencies that are supporting our Army families that you might not know about. For instance, PCS Grades was there this year, unfortunately, virtually, hopefully next year in person. I saw Yvonne on there earlier. We adore Operation Deploy Your Dress, and they have a booth there that everybody loves to come by. Even the SMA had his picture taken with one of the dresses last year. So we try to bring lots of information there, some tried and true that are kind of always there, but we always try to have new people there as well so that you can find out who's supporting you and why they think it's important. Again, add to your toolkit, add to your toolkit. I think you're going to ask me a question later about what would my dream annual meeting look like. So I'm not going to go into that answer just yet, but it does have to do with the pavilion and with the exhibit hall, because I don't think enough people go down there and explore it, because sometimes there's just so much going on. But we're going to try to do some things that are going to help you go down there, because I think it would be worth your while. And every once in a while, I'll get an email from a soldier or someone that says, hey, it's Columbus Day, my kid's off of school. Is it okay if I bring them with me? Because, kids, Army equipment, oh my God. And we say, yes, as long as they are with you, because they could get very, very lost there. And as you have a handle on your child and you want to kind of like peruse them through, that's okay too. They just have to be registered and we count them as part of our Army family for sure.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. They count. Kids serve too.
So we've talked a lot about this year. Are there any sneak peeks you can give us for what's coming next year? And then speaking of that dream forum, dream town hall event, what would that look like?
Great question. Thanks, Megan. I think I would love to be able to do some type of breakout session. We were going to do it this last time where we would have some of the subject matter experts available at a table or maybe in a different room where you can follow up on some of the issues that came up, because, those forums are quick. They go by fast and then they disappear. The subject matter experts disappear and you don't get your question asked. So that's something I would really, really want to try to do this next year. How do we have the ability to connect with them a bit more? And my dream AUSA annual meeting would include a military spouse business pavilion. That would be my dream down in the exhibit hall, where military spouse entrepreneurs would have their own space to be able to, show off what it is that they're offering. And we tried something like that maybe about 5 or 6 years ago. I was very new at my job, so I wasn't quite sure what we were doing. But now that I know more, and I know a lot more mil spouse entrepreneurs, I think it would be really, really cool to do that. And possibly even maybe sometimes down in the pavilion floor, they have something called Warriors Corner, where you have specific little talks, like little TED Talks or something. Maybe there's a way that we could do military spouse run nonprofit corners, where some of the nonprofits can have a little bit of time than just being in the, not just because it's pretty cool, but being in the exhibit Family Readiness Pavilion. Maybe they would have maybe 10 or 15 minutes of fame where they could talk a little bit more about what they do to a larger audience.
Yeah, I love that. I love the idea of having the spouse corner, the spouse pavilion for the entrepreneurs. I think that is such a great idea. And if you need a second vote on it, you've got mine.
Excellent. I'm going to count on you guys. Definitely.
So I'm just going to throw a quick question up here before we get to your last question. We've got Nancy. And hi, Nancy, shout out. Okay, I'm just going to take that off the screen so we don't cover up Miss Patty's beautiful face, and I'll read it to you. So Nancy kind of wants to know if there'll ever be a program that will allow more space at the CDC to allow incoming and outgoing families some space during PCS. In her experience, the other options are essentially strangers caring for her child in their personal, home, which isn't, always up to CDC standards or always necessarily in a safe neighborhood. And she hopes that makes sense. But, do you think that there will ever be a point in time where a certain amount of slots will be allocated for incoming, outgoing PCS families?
Well, first off, that's a fantastic suggestion. I don't know why we haven't thought of it before. It's definitely going to go to Helen Rodarmal, again, the CYS chief at Army, and I'll make sure she sees this suggestion. But what I'll tell you is that at AUSA, childcare is one of the issues that I am passionate about, just passionate about, probably because I'm a grandmother and have two little Army brats that I worry about. But there's a lot of talk about what COVID has done to access to affordable quality childcare. So it's not just diminished on the installation, it's also off the installation, where some of the childcare centers actually closed down and never reopened because of COVID. So I'm thrilled that where I'm a board member, and I'm kind of getting to the end of my term. I've been on the board now for 7 years. It's a long time. Is the Child Care Aware of America board. And we are really trying to talk to them because they have the data and of where the child care deserts are across the country. And we bring that information to Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and we say, hey, this is where you have an installation and here's a child care desert. How do we fix this problem? One of the ways we fix it is through family child care. Now, before everybody gets turned off about family child care homes, we have to relook that and reimagine what an FCC home could look like. It could be that you train the FCC provider to come to your home and take care of your kids. Let's say you have 3 children that you need to care for. Maybe that's one way to do that. And then that means that your home has to get inspected and has to be approved to, if you're willing to do that kind of thing. Not that the Army's talking about that. They're not. This is just some of the brainstorming that we've been doing. It could be that we stop talking about FCC homes as daycare centers or childcare. It is a business. It is being run by a business person. And with it comes all sorts of opportunities to learn the business acumen that you might be able to use for other things later, or to develop yourself as a child care or child development expert. The most important years in a child's life are the first 3 years of their life. Brain development is it's just so rapid during that time. And personal interactions matter. So there's so much I could go on and on about childcare, but to get back to that question, when you are stressed the most, which is during a PCS move, that makes the most sense to have a safe place to put your child so that you can concentrate on what you need to do to get through that PCS move. So I think it's a wonderful suggestion. We'll make sure the Army sees it.
No, and I think, yes, and this, Nancy, thank you so much, because that literally proves the point of bringing the sources here to you, because now this is an actual dialogue. This isn't just us talking at you. This is us having a conversation. And oh, by the way, with that one question and that one suggestion, you just created an idea that can create change. So that's awesome. Okay, last question, promise, because it's kind of like a 3-parter. So kind of pivoting towards the DoD Military Family Readiness Council, which you are a member of, in addition to your role, because you're just everywhere. In addition to your role at AUSA, you're serving here. Now, can you tell our audience what the DoD Military Family Readiness Council is, why they should know what the DoD Military Family Readiness Council is, and what we can watch out for across the DoD as far as family readiness is concerned?
Well, I hope I can answer these questions. I'm a new member. The Military Family Readiness Council has been legislated into law so that the Department of Defense must have an MFRC. And the role of the MFRC is to look at and not evaluate, but at least have an opinion on the family programs that the Department of Defense provides to our Army to our military families. This is totally a purple council. What is important about that, and what I recently learned, is that there are topics that are determined the year prior that are going to be discussed in the next year, and you only have 3 meetings. There's 2 meetings where you have topics discussed, and then 1 meeting where you get together and you think about what worked with what you learned, and then what you'd like to talk about next. we all felt this last time that that wasn't enough, that we really needed at least one more meeting, because maybe once a quarter, because there's just so much out there. So that's a possibility, but it would have to be changed, and that takes a little bit of time, but we think we can do it. The second thing is that many people are able to send in ideas or thoughts or any type of statement to the council. I used to think that that meant that we would discuss it during the meeting, and that's not the case. However, that shouldn't preclude you from sending something in, because what that does is it gives us ideas for what needs to be discussed, what we need to put into the queue to be discussed again. So if a lot of people are asking about EFMP, which is a very popular, I wouldn't say popular isn't the right word. It's a very important topic that a lot of people really want information on. If we're talking about childcare or whatever it happens to be. We discussed a couple of things this last time. We discussed the this DoD pilot where they put the DoD in different communities, civilian communities, and tried to connect all the pieces so that those family members had access to lots of different resources. And we also discussed the military healthcare, where we had the director of the Defense Health Agency come and talk to us about what was going on. And so all of that was good information. But then COVID hit. So what we all know and what we need to discuss is, what has the impact of COVID been on our military life going forward? How has it impacted childcare, education, employment, PCS moves, time? One of the frustrations for me that I was hearing during COVID was that families were told that they needed to shelter in place, but service members were going to work every day. And so we needed more information. When they go to work, were they wearing masks? How many people were in a room? Could you feel safe bringing your service member back into the home? The answer to that is yes. But if you didn't have discussions like that, then how would you know? And it just caused an awful lot of stress with our families. So COVID, the impact of COVID is definitely going to be something that we're going to discuss this next year. And we're going to discuss military child education, because it's become such an issue because of COVID. And it deserves its own time in the sun, if you will. So that's another topic. If we get our third meeting, which we're hoping we're going to get, we're going to also discuss childcare as its own topic, not just COVID related, but just childcare as a whole, not only for the military, but for the nation. And here's a couple of things that I want to say. When you transition out of the military, whether you're ETSing or you're retiring, there's an awful lot of protections that you lose. You lose your BHA. You might lose your health care if you're not retiring. You're losing your network. You're losing your community. And it's just important that we educate our families as much as possible with not only what the military provides, but what they can find outside the gate.
And that's key. And you know what, I'm absolutely sure that, talking about it nationwide is great, because that opens up the door to kind of cross-pollinate with our civilian counterparts on the issues that impact us both. You know what I mean? And that's really key. We're not going to be successful without other people. We need people. We need people. And whether they're military people or the community people in our community, we need those people, and they need us. Just write it down. They always need all of this.
And I just want to say one quick thing, I promise, MJ, and that is that I probably did not do justice to the MFRC. So if you really want the proper language and the real deal on the MFRC, just Google Military Family Readiness Council, and it'll pop up for you.
And you know what? Like, I have looked it up, and I've actually been to a meeting or two back in the day when there was no COVID. And honestly, if anybody ever gets the opportunity to do so, I highly suggest it, if only because some of the things that they'll talk about will be impacting you, like, period, end of discussion. That is the case. I do want to mention the EFMP. It is very important, because there's not been an event that I've gone to where I would ask somebody, is who here is part of EFMP, and the majority would raise their hand. And not, audience, you might not give a rip right now about EFMP, but listen to me when I say this. We are all just one breath away from disability. So what might not be true today might be true tomorrow. So just think about that. Okay, so I am actually going to be getting the names together for all of the people who dropped these amazing comments. And, we have lots of shout outs in here. Any questions that you have, especially since we have such a large Oconus following, we're staying in touch with Miss Patty. She can't get rid of us. And she's our buddy. So any questions that we have, we can forward on to her and she can do her best to answer those questions, and we can get you those resources, whatever it is that your question is about. So let me go ahead and get those. As I'm getting those, Miss Patty, do you have any saved rounds for us? What kind of resources would you like our people to know about?
Well, the first thing I would say is if you're not on Military OneSource, you need to be. Just an enormous amount of great information. I also want to give a shout out to PCS grades. I've known Todd for a long time. Moving is so stressful, and PCS grades and others like PCS grades just provide fantastic information to kind of lower that stress when you're moving, especially when you're not quite sure where you're headed. You can have, eyes on the ground to kind of help you figure that out. So thank you, PCS grades, for that, and for making it a priority to reach out to military spouses. You guys have my heart there. The other thing I would say is that, again, there are tons of resources out there, but try to go to the source. Like one of the reasons I bring up Military OneSource is all that information has been vetted. Go to the Army web pages, go to your installation web pages, take the spouse Facebook pages at the installations with a grain of salt. There is good information in there, but sometimes it's not as accurate as it can be. So always double check with someone that's official. And do come to AUSA. We try really, really hard to provide you with the kind of information that you need to be successful in your military journey. And we work really hard to try to get that done. I am going to mention that we are starting a new Family Readiness Committee at AUSA. And we will be sending out information about how you can be a part of that committee. You have to be a member, but we're going to have an application process, a selection process. And what that means is we'll probably meet once a quarter, but one of those meetings will actually be at AUSA annual meeting, and we'll pay your way there and help you have some fun with that. But so a way to also amplify your voice at AUSA, because we need you. And that's probably the biggest thing that I want to get across. We cannot do this job. I cannot do this job without you guys. There's no way that I can. You're living the life. You've got the information and the sacrifices that are being made, the fun that is being had, and the stress that is being felt. They're all real. And we want to be a part of your success.
I've got one quick question before MJ takes over real quick for you, Patty. The annual meeting that happened last week, we were, the great live streamed event. Is there a way for folks who missed it last week to be able to catch it on replay somewhere?
Oh, Megan, thank you so much. Yes, we're going to keep the platform open. So if you had a login, go back in and do that. And for those people that never registered, you can still register and get to those recordings. Also, Divids, DBIDS, has them on their Divids website.
And just for the audience's purview, every resource, everything that she is saying is being written down right now, and we will be dropping those links. Miss Patty, how long will that be open for people to view on the back end?
A couple of months, and then probably in December we'll see where we're at and whether we need to close it down, and then I'll make it available on the Facebook AUSA Readiness. Sorry, Facebook.com/AUSA Family page.
I love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
Anybody that missed it, definitely go check it out. It is worth it. Lots of great information, lots of great questions that were asked by viewers on there as well. It's definitely worth taking the time to go and check it out.
Awesome. Yes, and I will definitely, but we'll just go ahead and put it down in those comments. And speaking of comments, we've gotten some great ones. We had great engagement. We had an awesome audience because of these awesome people in front of me right now. And just to show you how awesome you are, we're going to go ahead and do that drawing now. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to share my screen. Oh, look at Miss Patty. She's just can't wait. She just can't wait. All right. So I'm going to click to spin. Oh, look at all those names, everybody. That's a lot of names. Here we go. Drum roll. Thea,
Congratulations.
congratulations. And FYI, Thea is the program manager, total, I'll use a term that I use with Megan, BA as well. And if I'm not mistaken, Miss Patty's right-hand gal. So we're going to go ahead and also do another one. Surprise! Are you ready? Here we go. Drum roll. What? Kristen Christie. Okay.
Kristen.
So both Kristen and Thea, if you could both message the PCS Grades Facebook page so I can get your email address so I can send you the link to get your awesome Hope Design necklace that says this too shall PCS word. And so I'm going to get off screen share so you don't see how my brain works here. Because it's a little cray. Yeah, so congratulations, Kristen and Thea. That is really awesome. I swear it wasn't rigged. It was awesome though. And I just want to thank you again so much, Miss Patty, for coming on and kind of getting real about it and just talking all things Army, all things AUSA, and throwing a little bit of purple family readiness up in there for us too. Great information. If you have a chance to catch the replay, send it to your friends, especially if they're going to be needing this information too soon. So that is all we have for today. Next week, we actually have Transportation Command coming back on, talk about some things and stuff.
You're a week ahead. You're a week ahead.
I'm a week ahead. I'm just kidding. I'm a week ahead because I'm that good. Next week
is Lizanne.
Next week is Lizanne Lightfoot. She is our content manager here at PCS Grades, who just made a move, a PCS move by a Diddy move, a PM across the country with a family of 7. And she did all of this on purpose. And so she tracked her whole move from start to finish, and we're going to go from it start to finish and what it's like to PCS during COVID on your own with a family of 7. Yes. Get your popcorn.
The following week, November 4th, we'll have Transcom back on talking about some good stuff.
Yes, the following week. I like to fast forward because, here I'm go, go, go. That's how I roll. But thank you again, Miss Patty. And of course, thank you, Megan, our PCS Reform Advocate. And until next week, Megan.
This too shall PCS.
Bye, everybody.